At 2 a.m., as I slept soundly in my bed after taking my blood pressure medication, my daughter-in-law Diana quietly crept into my room. I heard a strange sound, like someone moving things around, but I thought it was Princess, my cat, playing in the house. I never imagined it was my own daughter-in-law, sneaking in like a thief to steal from the woman who had welcomed her into her home with open arms. With her deceitful hands, she took my purse from the nightstand right next to the photo of my deceased husband, pulled out my credit card, and tiptoed out, like the criminal she always was, though I only unmasked her after 5 years. When I woke up at 7 a.m. that morning, I drank my coffee as usual and decided to check my bank account to pay the month's bills. My heart sank. $18,000 was gone from my account. $18,000 that I had saved for years. I had worked as a seamstress until my fingers became gnarled from all the sewing. I had cleaned strangers' houses on weekends and sold homemade tamales on the corner when my pension wasn't enough. Every dollar I saved was through sacrifice, denying myself pleasures, wearing the same clothes for years, all to have some security in my old age. All that money was spent in just one single night. A first-class flight to Miami for $3,000, even though she always claimed she didn't even have money for the bus. A luxury hotel for 4 nights, $2,000 per night. Jewelry at Tiffany & Company for $8,000, dinners at exclusive restaurants, shopping at expensive boutiques, massages at 5-star spas. Blood rushed to my head. My hands trembled so much I almost dropped my phone. I checked the transactions over and over again, hoping it was a bank error, a hacker attack, anything other than the raw and painful reality unfolding before me. All purchases were made exactly during the hours Diana had left the house. Between 2 and 6 a.m., when she had told David she couldn't sleep and needed to go for a walk to relax. Good heavens, how could I have been so naive? How could I not have seen the signs? Last week, she had returned from Miami with full suitcases, flaunting new clothes and shiny jewelry, telling tales of a surprise trip given to her by a millionaire friend she'd met on social media. A friend she had never mentioned before, never introduced, who apparently only existed in her lying imagination. I ran to my son's room. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would leap from my chest. My legs could barely carry me. I knocked desperately on the door with my knuckles, then with the flat of my hand, shouting his name.
David, I need to talk to you right now.
It's an emergency. My son opened the door 5 minutes later, sleepy and annoyed. He wore a crumpled white t-shirt and had messy hair. Behind him, Diana was fixing her hair in front of the mirror, wearing a red silk nightgown I had never seen before and that she had certainly bought with my money. Mom, what's wrong? It's 7 a.m. Why are you shouting? $18,000 is gone from my account. I showed him my phone screen with trembling hands.
Someone used my credit card last night.
Look at these purchases. Diana slowly approached, pretending to be curious and innocent. She wore new diamond earrings that sparkled in the morning light. Earrings that cost more than I earned in 6 months.
Oh, Mutter-in-law, hör auf fool.
Who could have done that? Her voice was honeyed, but I knew that falseness. It was the same voice she used when she asked me for money she never repaid. Diana, I said, looking her directly in the eyes and trying to control my breath. Where exactly were you last night between 2 and 6 a.m.? Her expression didn't change a millimeter. She didn't even blink. That absolute coldness confirmed what I already knew in my heart. Mom, David interjected, stepping between us like a human shield. How can you dare accuse my wife? Diana slept here all night. I was with her. David, please look at these transactions, I insisted, showing him the screen. Look at these purchases, the flight to Miami, the hotel, the jewelry. Everything matches her trip from last week. Enough now. My son shouted at me like he never had in his 32 years of life. His eyes were full of anger, as if I were his enemy and not the woman who had given birth to him and raised him alone after his father died. Stop accusing Diana. She would never touch your money. You're paranoid, Mom. You need psychological help. The words hit me like slaps. My own son, my only son, the child I had fed with my own hands when we had nothing, called me crazy in front of the woman who had stolen from me. Tears burned in my eyes, but not because of the lost money, but because of the double betrayal, because of the feeling of having lost my son as well. Diana had achieved what she wanted. She had completely turned him against me. But then, amidst this heartbreaking pain, I smiled. A smile that confused them both, that made Diana step back and David frown, because they didn't know something I knew. The card she had used to steal wasn't my main card with my real savings. It was a trap I had set 3 months earlier. I had loaded exactly $18,000 from a separate account onto that card, as I suspected her, and was waiting for the perfect moment to unmask the snake who had entered my house. If you have experienced the betrayal of a loved one, if you have felt your own family turn their backs on you when you needed them most, if you have been called a liar even though you speak the purest truth, then you will understand why what I did next left everyone speechless and changed our family forever. To understand why my daughter-in-law Diana hated me so much, I must tell you how it all began. 5 years ago, when David first introduced her to me, I was excited to meet the woman who had captured my only son's heart. David had been alone for so long, after a 3-year toxic relationship that had almost destroyed him emotionally. His ex-girlfriend Sarah had manipulated him, taken his money, and cheated on him multiple times until he finally found the strength to end that unhealthy relationship. I had cried with him so many nights, comforted him when he came home devastated, and cooked his favorite foods to lift his spirits. When he told me he had met someone special, my heart filled with hope. "Mom, I want you to meet Diana. She's different from any woman I know. She's sweet, hardworking, comes from a simple family like ours." When Diana first entered my house, she came with a bouquet of yellow flowers and a smile that seemed sincere. She wore a simple dark green dress, worn but clean shoes, and spoke respectfully about her family. She told me she was the eldest of 4 siblings, that her mother cleaned offices, and her father was a construction worker. "Mrs. Smith," she said, taking my hands, "I want you to know that I love your son with all my heart. I would never hurt him the way he was hurt before." I wanted to believe her. God knows how much I wanted to believe her. In the first few months, Diana seemed like the perfect daughter-in-law. She came on Sundays to help me cook. She brought me small, inexpensive but thoughtful gifts. She listened to my stories from David's childhood. She even offered to help me with groceries when my legs ached too much. But I had decades of experience seeing through people. As a seamstress who served all kinds of customers for 40 years, you learn to recognize the masks people wear. And something about Diana didn't quite sit right with me. Don't be so suspicious. But my maternal instinct, that sixth sense all women of my generation develop to survive, told me something was wrong. Things began to change subtly after their wedding 3 years ago. The wedding was small, at the courthouse, because Diana supposedly didn't believe in unnecessary expenses. But I noticed her eyes sparkle when she saw my gift. $5,000 that I had saved over 2 years to give them a good start to their marriage. "Oh, mother-in-law, you're so generous. This money will help us so much." But they never told me what they spent it on. And when I asked weeks later, Diana quickly changed the subject. After the wedding, Sunday visits became rarer. First every 2 weeks, then once a month, always with perfectly reasonable excuses. Overtime, plans with friends, tiredness. "Mom, Diana works very hard all week. On Sundays, she needs to rest," David explained when I asked why they weren't coming. But I knew Diana had quit her job as a receptionist 3 months after the wedding. "The work environment was very toxic, mother-in-law. David said I shouldn't worry. He can support me until I find something better." Something better never came, but unnecessary expenses did. Diana began wearing designer clothes, getting her nails done at expensive salons, and changing her phone every 6 months. All paid for by my son, who worked double shifts as a mechanic to fulfill her every whim. "David is very tired lately," I said one day when he visited me alone. "Don't you think Diana could look for a job to help him?" "Mom, don't meddle in our marriage. Diana is looking, but the job market is tough. Tough to find work, but not to spend my son's money. I come from a different generation. My parents taught me that marriage is a partnership where both contribute. When my husband died, David was only 12, and I had to take every job. To raise him, I sewed late into the night, cleaned houses, sold homemade food. I never expected someone else to support me, but Diana had grown up with a completely different mentality. For her, getting married meant finding someone to provide for her. And my son, with his noble heart and his fear of being alone again, had fallen perfectly into her trap. The first small theft happened a year ago. They were over for dinner, and I had left my purse in the kitchen while I served dessert. The next day, when I went to pay at the supermarket, I realized $200 in cash I had saved was missing. I asked David if he had seen the money. "Mom, you probably spent it and didn't remember. At your age, it's normal to forget things." My age? I'm 68, not 90. My mind is perfect, and so is my memory. But David had already started treating me like a senile old woman, probably influenced by his wife's poisonous comments. From that day on, I started being more careful with my belongings. I kept my purse in secure places, noted all my expenses in a notebook. I took photos of my cash before leaving the house. But Diana was smarter than I thought. The thefts became more sophisticated. Small amounts disappeared from my savings account. Strange purchases appeared on my bank statement. When I complained to the bank, they told me all transactions had been authorized with my card and my personal PIN. The only person who knew my PIN was David because I had given it to him for emergencies when I had gallbladder surgery 2 years ago. And David had given it to Diana so she could help you if you need anything urgently while I'm at work. Help? What cruel irony. For months, I tried to talk to my son about my suspicions. Every conversation ended the same way. He defended his wife, and I was portrayed as a paranoid and jealous mother-in-law who couldn't accept her son's happiness. "Mom, Diana makes me happy. Can't you just be happy for me?" Of course, I wanted his happiness, but not at the expense of a manipulator who was destroying our family and stealing my life savings. That's when I decided to set the trap. If Diana truly was a thief, I would unmask her once and for all. 6 months ago, I noticed more drastic changes in Diana's behavior towards me. She no longer bothered to feign as much affection when David wasn't around. Her smiles became forced, her answers briefer, and she began implementing a subtle but effective strategy to alienate me from my own son. It all started with seemingly innocent comments she made to David about my mental health. "Honey, your mom asked me the same thing 3 times yesterday. I think you should take her to the doctor. At her age, dementia can start without us even realizing it." "David, your mom told me she lost money again. She's always obsessed with someone stealing from her. That's not normal." "My love, I hate to say it, but your mom was very mean to me yesterday. She yelled at me for no reason. I think she's losing control of her emotions." Lies. Every one of these sentences was a calculated lie to sow seeds of doubt about my mental stability in my son's mind, and it worked perfectly. David started treating me differently. He spoke to me slower, as if I were a small child who understood nothing. He constantly asked me if I had taken my medication. He repeated things 2 or 3 times to make sure I understood. "Mom," I said one day, "I'm perfectly fine. I don't need you to treat me like a mentally impaired person." "Mom, nobody's saying there's anything wrong with you. We just want to take care of you. Diana told me she saw you talking alone in the garden the other day." I wasn't talking alone. I was talking to Princess, my cat, as I had done for years. But Diana had twisted it to make me look like a crazy person talking to ghosts. Invitations to family dinners began to dwindle. David used to call me every Friday to invite me to dinner on Sunday. Now weeks would pass without him calling. "Why didn't you invite me to Diana's birthday?" I asked when I accidentally learned they had thrown a party. "Mom, it was just something small, just us and a few close friends. We didn't think you'd be interested in being with young people." Young people? I'm 68, not 105. And it was my daughter-in-law's birthday. Of course, I was interested in being there, but Diana had managed to make David believe I was a social burden who made his friends uncomfortable. Gifts I bought Diana for special occasions mysteriously disappeared. "Oh, mother-in-law, what a shame. I can't find the bracelet you gave me for our anniversary. I think I dropped it somewhere. But don't worry, it's the thought that counts." A lie. The silver bracelet that cost me $300 later appeared in photos on her social media, but on someone else's wrist. She had sold it or given it to her friends. When I tried to talk to David about it, he downplayed the situation. "Mom, those are material things. What's important is that Diana appreciated your gesture." But it wasn't just material things. It was my effort, my hard-earned money, thrown away like trash by a woman who didn't appreciate anything I did for her. The final straw was when Diana started fabricating fake emergencies to get money from me. "Mother-in-law, I'm sorry to bother you, but I have a terrible emergency. My mother was hit by a car and needs urgent surgery. Can you lend me $5,000? I'll pay you back in 2 months when I get my severance package from my old job." What severance package? She had quit, she hadn't been laid off. And when I asked about her mother's health a week later, Diana looked confused. "What car accident?" "Oh, mother-in-law, my mother is perfectly fine. I think you've confused something." I had confused something? She herself had asked me for the money for the alleged surgery. David, of course, sided with his wife. "Mom, you probably misunderstood what Diana told you. She would never ask you for money for something fake. $5,000 that I never got back." When I asked for the money 2 months later, Diana played the victim. "Oh, mother-in-law, you know we're very financially strained. Of course, we'll pay you back when we have it." But she continued to buy new clothes every week, change her phone every 3 months, and indulge in expensive beauty treatments. All paid for with the money David earned like a slave, and with the money she stole from me. I began keeping a secret diary, noting every incident, every lie, every manipulation. Exact dates, witnesses, evidence, because I knew that one day I would have to prove that I wasn't crazy, that everything happening was real. March 15th, Diana asked me for $200 to fix the car. 2 days later, I saw her at the beauty salon, where she spent exactly that amount on eyelash extensions. April 3rd, David cancelled our Sunday dinner because Diana had a terrible headache. That same night, she uploaded photos to Instagram of her at a party with her friends. May 20th, Diana told me she was looking for an office job. A week later, I learned from a neighbor that she had seen her at the casino for hours during working hours. Every note was a piece of the puzzle that helped me understand my daughter-in-law's pattern of behavior. She wasn't just irresponsible or lazy, she was a professional con artist who had made my son her primary victim and me her secondary source of income. The most painful thing was seeing David distance himself from me more and more each day. The phone calls became sparse and cold. Visits were reduced to obligatory appointments on holidays, and when we saw each other, he was always in a hurry to leave. "Mom, Diana is waiting for me in the car. We can't stay long." "Mom, I promised Diana I'd take her shopping after our visit here." "Mom, Diana cooked my favorite meal. If I'm late, it'll get cold." Diana, Diana, Diana. My son was no longer David. He had become a puppet of a woman who exploited him and systematically isolated me. I decided to conduct one last test before implementing my master plan. I lent Diana more money with the excuse that she needed it for a professional qualification course that would get her a very good job. I swear on my mother-in-law that this money is an investment in our future. With this course, I'll find a very well-paying job, and we can pay you back everything we owe you. A week later, there was no course, no job, but new photos on Instagram. Diana in an expensive restaurant, toasting with champagne that cost more than my son's daily wage. That was the final confirmation I needed. My daughter-in-law was not just an exploiter, she was a systematic thief who had made stealing her full-time job. It was time to set the trap that would unmask her forever. The trap I designed for Diana required patience, intelligence, and a lot of planning. Nothing could be improvised. It had to be perfect and irrefutable, so that in the moment of truth, neither David nor anyone else could deny the evidence. 3 months ago, I opened a completely new bank account at a different bank than I had always used. I deposited exactly $18,000 from my real savings into this new account and applied for a credit card exclusively linked to this money. Why exactly $18,000? Because I had calculated that this was precisely the amount Diana had stolen from me in small quantities over the past 2 years. It was my money that she had already taken, so it was only fair to use that exact amount to expose her. For weeks, I accidentally left the new card visible in various places in my house when Diana visited. I put it on the kitchen table while I made coffee. I put it on the living room furniture when I went to the restroom. I put it in my open purse while looking for other things. Every time I did this, I secretly observed Diana's reaction. Her eyes always fixed on the card, memorizing the numbers, studying every detail, but she was clever. She never showed too much obvious interest. "Oh, mother-in-law, is this card new? It looks very elegant." "Yes, dear, the bank gave it to me because I'm an old customer. It has a very high limit for emergencies." Her eyes sparkled at this information, exactly the reaction I had expected. The next step was to create the perfect opportunity. I knew Diana would only dare to steal if she was absolutely sure she wouldn't be caught. I needed a situation where she had full access to my house without any supervision. The opportunity arose when David told me that he and Diana would be coming over for dinner on a Tuesday evening. "Mom, Diana wants to cook for you. She says she hasn't made you anything special in a long time." Perfect. A dinner at my house meant Diana would have hours to study the place, plan her strategy, and wait for the right moment to act. That evening, I prepared everything as if it were a play. I left my purse on the nightstand in my room with the trap card visible, but not too obvious. I set up the surveillance cameras I had secretly installed at strategic points in my house 2 weeks earlier. Yes, surveillance cameras. At 68, I learned to use technology one never thought I'd need. My nephew Thomas, my niece Jessica's son, had helped me install them when he visited. I told him it was for general security, but in reality, I had specifically set them up to catch Diana. "Grandma Barbara, these cameras record everything and save it to the cloud. You can watch the footage anytime on your phone." During dinner, Diana was exceptionally charming. She cooked my favorite meal, set the table for me like a perfect daughter. She told me funny stories that made me laugh. It was the performance of her life, because she had probably already decided that this would be the night she would steal from me. "Mother-in-law, you're very thin. Eat well. Do you need me to do some shopping for you?" "Oh, Diana, you're so thoughtful. David is lucky to have found you." Inside, every kind word she said to me was like a dagger thrust, because I knew that while she smiled to my face, she was already planning to steal from me in my sleep. After dinner, as I always did when they visited, I took my blood pressure medication and went to bed early. But that night, instead of my usual pills, I took only vitamins that looked identical. I had to be completely awake to hear every movement in my house. At 10 p.m., David and Diana went to their room. I heard their voices in whispers, then the sound of the TV, then silence. At 11:30 p.m., I heard David's deep breathing. He always snored lightly when he was in a deep sleep. At midnight, there was absolute silence. At 1 a.m., I began to hear subtle movements, very quiet footsteps in the hallway, the barely perceptible creak of a door slowly opening. My heart began to pound so hard that I feared Diana could hear it from the hallway. But I kept my eyes closed and breathed deeply, pretending to sleep more convincingly than ever before. At 2:05 a.m., I felt a presence in my room. Someone moved silently near my bed. The almost inaudible sound of my purse being opened, the rustling of paper or plastic being manipulated with extreme care. I kept my breathing deep and even, as if I were in the deepest sleep of my life. Every fiber of my being wanted to open my eyes at that moment and confront her, but I knew I had to let her complete the theft to have irrefutable evidence. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 10 minutes, the presence disappeared. I heard subtle footsteps retreating from my room. The sound of the door closing almost silently. I waited another 30 minutes before checking my purse with my phone's flashlight. The trap card was gone. The rest of the night I couldn't sleep for a minute. Every hour, I checked the bank notifications on my phone. At 3 a.m., the first authorized purchase came through for $2,845 at Tiffany & Company. At 3:30 a.m., an authorized purchase for $530 at Louis Vuitton. At 4 a.m., an authorized purchase for an American Airlines first-class flight. At 5 a.m., An authorized purchase for $2,890 at the Fontainebleau Miami Beach Hotel. One by one, the notifications came. My trap was working perfectly. Diana had taken the bait and spent the $18,000 in just one night, believing she had stolen my real savings. At 6 a.m., when I heard David getting up to go to work, I pretended to wake up too. I left my room as if nothing had happened. I made coffee as usual and greeted my son normally.
Good morning, dear.
Did you sleep well? Yes, Mom. Diana also slept soundly. She was very tired last night. Of course, she was tired. She had spent 4 hours stealing from me and shopping online with my money. David went to work, unsuspecting. Diana continued to sleep until 10 a.m. When she finally got up, she came into the kitchen with a radiant smile and in the best of moods. Good morning, mother-in-law. What a beautiful day it is. Good morning, Diana. You look very happy. I slept wonderfully. Your house is so quiet and peaceful. What nerve. She had just stolen from me and had the audacity to congratulate me on the peace in my home. Mother-in-law, I just remembered that a friend invited me to Miami this weekend. It's a last-minute trip, but I think it will do me good to get away. What a coincidence, Diana. And how will you pay for this trip? Oh, my friend is very generous. She's paying for everything. I just have to get to the airport. Lie after lie after lie. But I already had all the evidence I needed. That same afternoon, Diana announced that she would be away for a week. I need time to relax and think about my professional future. A week to spend my money in Miami, living like a millionaire with stolen funds. But she didn't know that I had the surveillance cameras, the bank records, and most importantly, the patience to wait for the perfect moment to expose her to David. The moment had come, the trap had snapped shut, and Diana had fallen right into it, just as I had planned. A week later, Diana returned from Miami, tanned, relaxed, and laden with shopping bags that obviously no generous friend had paid for. She arrived at my house on Sunday morning, radiant with happiness, pretending she had just returned from a well-deserved vacation, instead of a week of spending stolen money. Mother-in-law, how much I looked forward to seeing you. She hugged me with a false exuberance that made me nauseous. Miami was incredible. My friend took me to beautiful places. David was present, smiling like a lovesick idiot, seeing his wife so happy and refreshed. He had no idea that this happiness had been funded with his own mother's money.
Mom, don't you think Diana looks spectacular?
The trip did her a lot of good. Yes, David, she looks very well off. Diana then showed me photos of her trip on her phone. The luxury hotel where she had stayed, the 5-star restaurants where she had eaten, the exclusive stores where she had bought clothes and jewelry, all meticulously documented on her social media, as if she wanted to leave evidence of her crimes. See, mother-in-law, I liked this necklace so much that my friend insisted on buying it for me. It was a pearl necklace that I immediately recognized because I had seen the exact transaction on my bank statement. $3,200 at Mikimoto. What a generous friend you have, Diana, don't you think? Yes, she says I deserve nice things. Nice things paid for with my stolen money. Throughout the conversation, I remained absolutely calm. I didn't show the slightest hint of suspicion or anger. I had to ensure that both David and Diana were completely relaxed and confident for what was to come next. Well, I'm very glad you enjoyed your trip. By the way, I have something to tell you both. What is it, Mom? Yesterday morning, I checked my bank account and discovered something very strange. Someone used my credit card last week and spent exactly $18,000. Diana didn't flinch. Her expression remained the same, smiling and relaxed. David, on the other hand, immediately switched to protective mode. What, Mom? That's terrible. Have you reported the fraud to the bank yet? Well, David, before I reported anything, I decided to do a little research myself, and what I found is very interesting. I pulled out my phone and began to show them the transactions one by one, with exact dates and times. Look, here's the first purchase, $2,845 at Tiffany & Company last Tuesday at 3:02 a.m. Diana was still smiling, but I noticed her hands tensing slightly. Then, at 3:30 a.m., $530 at Louis Vuitton. Mom, why are you showing us this? Obviously, it was a hacker who stole your data. Wait, David, let me finish. At 4 a.m., a first-class flight to Miami, and at 4:22 a.m., $2,890 at the Fontainebleau Miami Beach Hotel. The silence in the living room grew thicker. David began to understand the implications, but still didn't want to accept the obvious. Mom, this must be a terrible coincidence. Thousands of people travel to Miami every day. You're right, my son. That would be an incredible coincidence. But wait, there's more. I continued to show transaction after transaction. Every restaurant Diana had eaten in, every store she had shopped in, every spa where she had relaxed. Everything perfectly matched the photos she herself had uploaded to Instagram. $560 at Joe's Stone Crab on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. David turned pale. His eyes darted between my phone screen and his wife's face, which had finally stopped smiling. $890 for a spa treatment at the hotel on Thursday afternoon. Here's Diana's Instagram story, where she's getting that exact facial. Mom. David's voice was just a broken whisper. $2,000 at Versace on Friday afternoon. The same red dress Diana is wearing right now. We all looked at the dress Diana was wearing. A dress that was clearly worth more than David's monthly salary. That must be a mistake, David mumbled, but it no longer sounded convincing, not even to himself. Diana, I said, looking her directly in the eyes. Can you explain these extraordinary coincidences? For the first time in 5 years, I saw Diana speechless. Her mind was working feverishly to find an explanation that could save her, but it was impossible. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. Mother-in-law, this is very confusing. I don't understand how my trip can coincide with these charges. This must be a bank error, right? Diana, I interrupted her with a voice she had never heard from me before. A firm, serious voice, without an atom of the feigned kindness I had maintained for years. Stop lying, it's no use anymore. David sank onto the sofa, his head in his hands. It can't be true. Please tell me it's not true. Do you want me to show you more evidence, David? Because I have a lot more. I pulled out a manila folder I had specially prepared for this moment. It was full of documents, photos and screenshots, all the evidence I had meticulously collected.
Surveillance caméra.
David lifted his head, completely confused. Since when do you have surveillance cameras? Since my money started mysteriously disappearing, David, since I realized there was a thief in my own family. Diana stood up abruptly, her face completely transformed. There was no trace of the sweet and loving daughter-in-law. Instead, the real Diana had appeared, cold, calculating, angry at being caught. You set a trap for me. That's illegal. You can't record me without my consent. In my house, I can install whatever cameras I want, Diana. And stealing is illegal, very illegal. David finally looked at his wife. Diana, is it true? Did you really steal my mom's money? The mask had completely fallen. Diana looked at him contemptuously, as if David was stupid for asking that question. And what if I did? Your mother has more money than she needs. She lives like a miser while we barely scrape by. Diana. No, David, I'm tired of pretending. Your mother never accepted me, always treated me like dirt. If I take a little of her money, it's the least she owes me for all the rejections she inflicted on me. Barely scraping by? I repeated slowly. David works double shifts to fulfill your every whim. You don't work a single day and you steal from me on top of it. You call that barely scraping by? You don't understand anything. I deserve more than living in this awful house with a man who earns a paltry wage. David stood up as if he had been slapped. Awful house, man who earns a paltry wage. Is that what you think of me? The truth is, yes. I'm 30 years old. I can't waste my life living in poverty when there are easier ways to get money. Easier ways, I said with a bitter smile, like stealing from 68-year-old women in their sleep? At least I'm smarter than both of you. But Diana had made a fatal mistake. She had shown her true colors to David, and for the first time in 5 years, my son saw his wife for who she really was. Smarter than both of us, I repeated Diana's words slowly, savoring the moment I had waited months for. Well, Diana, if you're so smart, then you must have realized that the card you stole wasn't my main card. Her face froze. For the first time since the beginning of this confrontation, I saw a genuine glimmer of fear in her eyes. What do you mean? I mean, my dear daughter-in-law, that 3 months ago I opened a brand new bank account specifically to set this trap. I deposited exactly $18,000 into that account. I got a new card and patiently waited for you to do exactly what you did. David looked at me with an open mouth. Mom, are you telling me you knew this was going to happen? David, your wife has been systematically stealing from me for the past 2 years. Small amounts here and there, money disappearing from my purse, strange charges on my main account. But she was clever. She always stole only a little, so I couldn't be completely sure. I pulled out a manila folder I had specially prepared for this moment. It was full of documents, photos, screenshots, and all the evidence I had meticulously collected. But I'm from a generation that doesn't give up easily. For 2 years, I documented every theft, every lie, every manipulation. I opened the folder and began to show evidence after evidence. Here's proof of the first time she stole cash from me. $200 that disappeared from my purse after a family dinner. I took photos of my money before they came and after they left. David took the photos with trembling hands. The before and after was obvious. Here are the bank statements showing mysterious charges at expensive restaurants. Exactly on the days Diana went out with friends. Charges made with my debit card. Mom, why did you never tell me this? I did tell you, David. I tried to talk to you hundreds of times. Every time I mentioned my suspicions about Diana, you defended her and treated me as if I were a crazy, paranoid old woman. I pulled out my phone and played an audio recording. What's that? David asked. It's a conversation Diana had with her friend Jessica 2 months ago. I recorded it when she visited me and thought I was sleeping in my room. Diana's voice was clearly audible from the speaker.
Jessica, I'm telling you, it's super easy.
The old lady has a ton of money saved and doesn't even notice when I take something. David is so stupid. He always believes me when I tell him his mother is losing her memory and doesn't suspect a thing. David is so in love with me that he would do anything I ask. And the mother-in-law is so naive. She always believes me when I invent emergencies to get money from her. You're a genius, Diana. How much have you gotten in total? Around $10,000 in 2 years. But I'm planning something big. I think I can take a lot more from her at once. David dropped the phone as if it were burning. His face had gone through all shades of color. Stupid, he mumbled. You called me stupid. Diana had turned completely pale. David, that recording was taken out of context. I was joking with Jessica. You know how women talk when they're with friends. Out of context.
I pull it out another recording.
Was this also taken out of context? It was a phone call Diana had made the previous week, when she thought I had gone shopping. Mom, I'm almost done with this whole charade. In a few months, I'm going to divorce David and get half of everything. The house is in his name, but since we're married under community property, I'm entitled to half. And the mother-in-law has saved a lot of money. I'm sure she's hidden at least $100,000. When I divorce him, I'm going to sue her for emotional abuse and get compensation.
You're very clever, my dear.
I have to be. I'm not going to waste my life being poor. The silence in the living room was deafening. David was completely devastated, looking at the woman he had married as if she were a stranger. 5 years, he whispered, 5 years of my life.
David, you don't understand.
I love you, but... David stood up abruptly.
Don't say you love me. People who love don't do things like this.
People who love don't call their husband stupid. People who love don't plan to divorce you while smiling to your face. But David,
And worst of all, you made me duped my own mother.
You made me treat her badly. You made me believe she was crazy, while you were the thief. David turned to me, tears in his eyes.
Mom, forgive me. Forgive me for not believing you.
Forgive me for defending her. Forgive me for treating you like a liar, even though you were right about everything.
David, no.
Mom, you were right from day one about her. Your maternal instinct told you something was wrong, and I was too blind to see it. Diana walked towards the door.
I'm leaving now.
I'm not staying here to be further humiliated. Not so fast, I said, blocking her way. First, you give me my $18,000 back, every single dollar. I don't have to give you anything back. That money doesn't exist anymore. Diana, I said with a smile she correctly understood as a threat. Do you give me my money back, or will I proceed with the criminal charges for theft that I have already prepared? With all this evidence, you'll spend several years in prison. Her horrified face confirmed that she finally understood that her days of stealing and lying were over forever. The following days were like living in the middle of an emotional hurricane. David threw Diana out of the house that same afternoon, but she didn't leave without putting on the biggest drama I had ever seen. This is a conspiracy, she screamed as she packed her belongings in a hurry. You both planned all this to destroy me. Barbara, you're an old manipulator who can't stand to see her son happy. Diana, you destroyed yourself, I replied with a calm that only infuriated her more. I merely documented your crimes. David, you can't do this to me. We're married. We're married in church. You have duties to me. My son looked at her with a mixture of pain and disgust, which broke my heart. Within a few hours, he had not only lost his wife but also the image he had of the last 5 years of his life. The only duties I have to you, David said with a broken but firm voice, are legal ones, and they will end when I divorce you. Diana turned to me with an expression of pure hatred. This won't stand, Barbara. You don't know who you're messing with. Are you threatening me in my own house? I'm not threatening you. I promise you'll pay for this. After she left, David collapsed on the sofa and cried like I hadn't seen him cry since he was a child. He cried because of the betrayal, because of the lost years, because of his blindness, because of his mistreatment of me to defend a woman who exploited him. Mom, how could I have been so stupid? How could I not see who she really was? David, love makes us blind. Diana was very good at manipulating. She made you believe you were happy while she slowly stole your life piece by piece. But the signs were there. Her refusal to work, her excessive spending, the way she always had money for her whims but never to help with household bills. People like Diana study their victims, my son. She knew exactly which buttons to push to keep you under her control. I thought the worst was over, but I was completely wrong. 3 days after Diana left, the reprisals began. First, it was phone calls late at night. The phone would ring at 2, 3, 4 a.m. When I answered, there was only silence on the other end, but I knew it was her. Then came the anonymous text messages. Old witch, you'll pay for what you did. Your son will hate you when he learns the whole truth. Be careful when you leave the house alone. David wanted us to call the police immediately, but I knew we needed more concrete evidence. Mom, this is harassment. We can't let her intimidate you. David, we haven't gotten the money back yet. If we pressure her too quickly, she might disappear, and we'll never see the $18,000 again. The situation escalated when Diana began spreading lies about me in the neighborhood. My neighbor Jessica stopped me on the street one morning. Barbara, is it true that you set a trap for your daughter-in-law to falsely accuse her of theft? What? Diana was here yesterday and spoke to several neighbors. She says you hated her because David loved her more than you, and that you made up this whole story to separate them. Jessica, you've known me for 20 years. Do you really believe I'm capable of something like that? Of course not, Barbara, but she tells very convincing stories. She says you have mental problems, and David is afraid to contradict you. This was typical Diana. Even after being completely exposed, she continued to manipulate the narrative to portray herself as a victim. That same week, I received a call from my bank. "Mrs. Smith, we're calling because someone tried to access your bank accounts by presenting a forged court order. Fortunately, our legal department determined the document was fraudulent." My blood ran cold. A court order, for what? Allegedly for investigating fraudulent transactions you supposedly made against a family member. The person who presented the document had detailed personal information about your accounts. Diana was trying to steal my real savings with fake legal documents. The woman knew no bounds, but the worst was yet to come. David came into my house one evening, completely agitated. "Mom, we have a very big problem." "What happened?" "Diana hired a lawyer. She's suing you for damages and emotional distress. She says the trap you set for her was illegal. You recorded private conversations without her consent and defamed her by showing the evidence to third parties." "Can she do that?" "Her lawyer says yes. She's demanding $50,000 in compensation for emotional damages and is threatening to press criminal charges against you for invasion of privacy." I slowly sat down in my favorite chair, feeling the weight of the situation. Diana had turned my victory into a legal battle that could ruin me. "David, do you think she can win?" "I don't know, Mom. Her lawyer seems very confident. And the worst part is she's using our divorce as leverage. She says if you drop the theft charges and pay her the compensation, she'll go through with the divorce quickly and without alimony claims. And if I don't agree, she'll fight for half of everything I own, including the house, and drag the process out for years." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, thinking about how Diana had managed to transform herself from the criminal to the victim, from the thief to the plaintiff. The next morning, while drinking my coffee, I found something that changed everything. It was a letter someone had slipped under my door during the night. A handwritten letter in shaky script that I immediately recognized. "Barbara, I'm Karen, Diana's mother. I urgently need to speak with you. My daughter doesn't know I'm writing to you, but there are things you need to know about her, things that can help you. Please call me at the number below, but don't tell anyone about this letter, especially not your son. Diana cannot know we've spoken. She is very dangerous when she's angry." Dangerous. Her own mother described her as dangerous. I reread the letter 5 times, trying to decide if it was genuine or another manipulation from Diana, but something in the desperate tone of the words convinced me it was real. That afternoon, while David was at work, I dialed the number. "Mrs. Karen, this is Barbara. Thank you for calling. We need to meet. There are things about Diana that no one else knows. Things she's done before." "Before?" "Barbara, my daughter has been stealing and defrauding people since she was a teenager. You're not her first victim, and your son is not her first husband." My heart stopped. "What do you mean, first husband?" "Diana was married before, 6 years ago, to an older man who had money. She ruined him and disappeared with all his savings. The man almost committed suicide." "Does David know this?" "Of course not. Diana told him she had boyfriends, but never that she was married. She's an expert at erasing her past and creating new identities." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm tired of watching my daughter destroy lives, and because I have something that can help you. Something Diana doesn't know I have." "What is it?" "Evidence of all her past crimes, videos, documents, testimonials from other victims, all kept in a safety deposit box that I opened when I knew she was getting involved with your son." For the first time in days, I smiled. Diana's mother had documented her own daughter's crimes and was waiting for the right moment to stop her. "Mrs. Karen, I think you and I need to meet very soon." "Barbara, there's something else you need to know. Diana doesn't work alone. She has accomplices, and they'll come for her." The line went dead, leaving me with more questions than answers, but also with the first real hope I had felt since the beginning of this legal nightmare. The war against Diana was far from over, but for the first time, I wasn't fighting alone. 2 days after Karen's call, we met at a small downtown cafe. When I arrived, I immediately recognized the woman sitting at the back table. It was an aged version of Diana, but with eyes full of sadness instead of malice. Barbara, she said, standing up to embrace me. You don't know how long I've waited for this moment. Mrs. Karen, I need to understand something. Why are you helping me? Diana is your daughter. Karen sighed deeply, and her eyes filled with tears. Precisely because she is my daughter and I have seen what she has become. I have waited for years for someone to confront her in the right way. She pulled out a small metal box and placed it on the table. Barbara, in this box are all the proofs I've collected over the last 10 years. Every victim of Diana, every crime, every lie, because I knew that one day I would have to stop her before she destroyed more lives. She opened the box and began to show me documents that left me speechless. This is Richard Davis. Diana married him in 2018 when he was 62. He had just received an inheritance of $300,000 from his first wife. She showed me wedding photos, legal documents, and bank statements. In 8 months, Diana drove him into total bankruptcy. She stole everything from him using the same techniques she used on you. Small thefts at first, then psychological manipulation to get him to give her access to his accounts. What happened to this man? He tried to commit suicide when Diana disappeared with his last penny. Fortunately, he was found in time, but he lost his house, his car, everything. Now he lives in an assisted living facility for low-income seniors. I felt sick. And you knew all this, Mrs. Karen? I tried to stop her. I spoke to Richard. I showed him evidence of my daughter's true character, but he was so in love he didn't believe me. Just like your son. Karen pulled out more documents. After Richard, there were others. This is Joseph Clark, a 45-year-old businessman. Diana stole $80,000 from him by pretending she needed money for urgent medical treatment. For me? For you? Yes. Diana said I had incurable cancer and needed very expensive surgery abroad. Joseph sent me flowers at the hospital where I was supposedly admitted. When the nurses told him there was no patient by my name, he began to suspect. What happened? Diana disappeared before he could confront her. She changed cities, changed her name on social media, and started a new life. That's how she met your son. I felt dizzy. David was just the next in a long line of victims. Mrs. Karen, why didn't you report your daughter to the authorities? Do you think I didn't try? But Diana is very clever. She always makes sure her victims don't have enough evidence. And if they do, she threatens to sue them for defamation, just like she's doing to you. Karen pulled out a small recording device. But this time it's different. This time, I have this. She pressed play, and I heard Diana's voice speaking on the phone. Mom, I'm almost done with that idiot David. In a few months, I'll take everything I can from him and divorce him. After that, Charles and I are moving to Mexico with all the money. Charles. Yes, my accomplice. He's the one who helps me forge documents and open fake bank accounts. He also gets me lawyers when things get complicated. And if the old lady gets suspicious, she won't suspect a thing. These old people are so naive, and if she does get suspicious, I'll sue her until she's ruined. I've done it before, and it works perfectly. The recording continued for 20 minutes. Diana confessed all her crimes, explained her methodology, laughed at her victims. When did you record this? 2 weeks ago, when she asked me for money for the lawyer. She thought I was alone at home, but I had hidden the recording device because I knew I would need this conversation one day. Mrs. Karen, this is enough evidence to put her behind bars. Yes, Barbara, but I won't give it to you for free. My heart stopped. What do you want in return? I want you to promise me to see this through to the end, that you won't accept any out-of-court settlement with Diana, that you'll ensure she faces the full legal consequences for what she's done. And I want you to help me contact all her previous victims so they can testify against her. That's the only way to ensure she never does this again. You can count on me. Karen handed me the box with all the evidence. Barbara, my daughter is a monster I helped create. I couldn't stop her before, but I can help you stop her now. That same afternoon, I called the most aggressive lawyer I knew, Dr. Richard Thompson, a specialist in fraud cases. He was expensive but had a reputation for not losing a case. Dr. Thompson, I need you to legally crush a person who stole from me and is trying to sue me because I exposed her. Mrs. Smith, after reviewing all the evidence you've presented, I can assure you that your daughter-in-law will end up in prison, and the lawsuit against you will be dismissed immediately. Are you sure, doctor? In 30 years of my career, I have never seen such a solid case. Your daughter-in-law is not only guilty of theft but also of fraud, forgery of documents, and extortion. She will face multiple criminal charges. And what about her threat to take half of everything my son owns in the divorce? With this evidence, she won't get anything in the divorce. She will also have to compensate all her victims, including the $18,000 she stole from you. Dr. Thompson devised a strategy that was absolutely devastating. First, we filed criminal counterclaims against Diana for all her crimes, including evidence from her previous victims. Richard, Joseph, and 3 other victims Karen had found, agreed to testify. Second, we presented all the recordings, documents, and photographic evidence we had collected. Third, we exposed the criminal network Diana had created with her accomplices, including the real Charles, who helped her forge documents. Fourth, we showed that her lawsuit against me was part of a pattern of intimidation she had used on previous victims. Diana's reaction was immediate and predictable. She tried to flee. 3 days after we filed the counterclaims, David received a call from a detective. Mr. Smith, we are looking for your wife. There are arrest warrants for multiple fraud and theft offenses. Do you know where we can find her? No, detective. Since she left the house, we haven't heard from her. But Diana had made a fatal mistake. In her haste to escape, she had used the trap credit card she had stolen from me to buy a plane ticket to Mexico. The bank immediately tracked the transaction, and the police arrested her at the airport 5 minutes before boarding. Images of Diana's arrest appeared on the local news that same evening. Woman arrested for multi-million-dollar fraud scheme affecting several elderly victims. David watched the news in silence with me, processing the fact that he had been married to a professional criminal for 5 years. Mom, he finally said to me, forgive me for not believing you. Forgive me for letting her do this to you. David, you were her victim too. What's important is that we know the truth now. 2 weeks later, Diana pleaded guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence of 8 years in prison. Part of the agreement included full restitution of all stolen money to all her victims. On the day of sentencing, Karen approached me in the courtroom. Barbara, thank you for having the courage to do what I couldn't do for years. Mrs. Karen, thank you for helping me stop her. I hope my daughter uses these years in prison to reflect on the damage she caused, and I hope that when she comes out, she is a different person. As we left the courtroom, David took my arm. Mom, can you forgive me?
David, Therese noting to forgive.
Now we can start anew, without lies, without manipulations. Just the 2 of us as a real family. Justice had prevailed. But more importantly, I had regained my son's trust and protected future victims from Diana's crimes. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is not personal, but one that protects others from suffering the same fate you endured. 6 months after Diana was sentenced, my life had changed in ways I never imagined. The $18,000 from the trap was fully reimbursed to me, along with interest and punitive damages totaling an additional $15,000. But more important than the money, I had regained something I thought I had lost forever, my son's trust and unconditional love. David moved back in with me in the first few months after the trial. He needed time to heal emotionally and process everything he had experienced in the 5 years of his marriage to a professional swindler. Mom, he said one evening as we ate dinner together, I don't know how you can ever forgive me for doubting you. David, my dear, I've already told you there's nothing to forgive. Diana was an expert manipulator. You were her victim too. But I was your son. I should have trusted you. I should have seen the signs. You know what? I think all of this happened for a reason. If you hadn't been so in love with her, if you had suspected her from the beginning, Diana probably would have disappeared before we could gather enough evidence to stop her. Your blind love, as painful as it was, allowed us to build the case that put her in prison. This perspective helped David begin the healing process. He started psychological therapy to process the manipulation he had suffered and slowly regained confidence in himself and his judgment. With the recovered money, I decided to do something I had dreamed of for years. I opened a small sewing studio in my house, something that reconnected me with the passion I had had my whole life. But now without the economic pressure of needing to survive. Mom, are you sure you want to work again? You're already 68 years old. David, this isn't work, it's joy. I've always loved sewing, but for decades I had to do it out of necessity. Now I can do it out of love. The studio became more than I imagined. Women from the neighborhood started coming, wanting to learn to sew, young mothers who needed to repair their children's clothes, ladies my age looking for a place to socialize while creating something beautiful with their hands. But what was special about the studio was that women who had experienced similar situations to mine began to come. Women who had been defrauded by family members, who were victims of manipulation, who needed a safe place to talk about their experiences without judgment. Mrs. Smith, my neighbor Jessica, told me one afternoon, "You don't know how important this place is to all of us. Here we feel safe, heard, valued." The studio became a kind of informal support group. As we sewed, the women shared their stories, gave each other advice, and strengthened each other. Some had been victims of phone scams, others of abusive family members, others of manipulative partners. "You know what I learned from my experience with Diana?" I said one day while we were working on a community quilt. "Trusting our instincts isn't paranoia. It's survival." A woman named Sarah, who had been defrauded by her own brother, looked up from her sewing. "But how do we distinguish between true instinct and unjustified fear?" "Sarah, if something in our gut doesn't feel right, if there are inconsistencies we can't explain, if someone makes us feel crazy for questioning obvious things, those are true instincts." Karen, Diana's mother, became a regular visitor to the studio. At first, I thought it would be uncomfortable, but she turned out to be one of the wisest and strongest women I had ever met. "Barbara," she said one day while embroidering napkins. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do something good, after all the bad my daughter caused." "Karen, you're not responsible for Diana's choices. You did the right thing by helping me stop her." "Yes, but as a mother, I'll always wonder at what point I lost my daughter, at what point she became the person she is." These conversations made me deeply reflect on motherhood, on how sometimes we love our children so much that we can no longer see their flaws. And sometimes, we love them so much that we have the courage to confront those flaws when necessary. David started coming to the studio on weekends, helping with repairs, moving furniture, bringing tea and coffee for the ladies. Watching him interact with all these wise women filled me with pride. He learned to appreciate female strength in a way he never had before. "Mom," he said one Saturday as we sorted colorful threads, "I think I understand why Diana bothered you so much from the beginning." "Why?" "Because you represent everything she never was and never will be. You worked honestly your whole life. You raised me with true values. You confront problems directly instead of manipulating others to solve them for you. Diana chose the easy path, but the easy path never leads to true happiness. Do you think she'll ever change?" "I don't know, my dear, but I hope these years in prison give her time to reflect on the damage she inflicted not only on us but on all her victims." Speaking of other victims, one of the most rewarding things about this whole process was being able to help Richard, Diana's first husband. With the compensation he received from the trial, he was able to move out of the assisted living facility and rent a small apartment where he could live with dignity. "Mrs. Smith," he told me when he moved in, "you gave me back hope for justice. I thought I would never get back a single penny of what that woman stole from me." Richard, we all deserve to live our golden years with respect and security. I decided to use part of the extra money I received from the trial to set up a small relief fund for elderly fraud victims. It wasn't a lot of money, but enough to help people like Richard regain a little dignity after being victimized. The fund was managed through the studio, and the participating women helped identify cases where we could make a real difference in someone's life. A year after the trial, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Diana, from prison. "Barbara, I know you probably don't want to read anything I have to say, but I have to try to explain some things to you. The letter spanned 3 pages. Diana explained her difficult childhood, her drug problems in her youth, the choices that had led her down the wrong path. She apologized for the damage she had caused, but in a way that still sounded manipulative. I showed the letter to David. "What do you think, Mom? Is she sincere?" "David, I think Diana feels sorry for herself, but I'm not sure she truly understands the harm she has caused others. A true apology involves taking full responsibility without excuses." "Will you answer her?" "No, Diana needs to focus on her own healing, without expecting forgiveness from her victims. If she truly comes out of prison changed one day, her actions will show that better than any letter." 2 years after the trial, David met Susan, a wonderful woman who works as an elementary school teacher. She is exactly the kind of woman I had always imagined for my son: honest, hardworking, independent, with solid values. "Mom," David told me when he first introduced her to me, "I want you to meet Susan, and I want you to know that this time I'm going to take everything slowly. I'm going to listen to my instincts, and yours." I liked Susan immediately. Not because she was perfect, but because she was authentic. She had her own opinions, paid her own bills, and if she disagreed with something, she said it directly instead of manipulating. "Mrs. Smith," she told me at our first dinner together, "David told me everything that happened with his ex-wife. I want you to know that I deeply respect the relationship you two have, and I would never try to come between a mother and her son." Susan, a woman who truly loves a man, doesn't try to separate him from the people who love him. She tries to integrate herself into that network of love. Now, 3 years after this whole nightmare began, I can honestly say that I am happier than I have been in decades. My studio is full of life and laughter every day. David is building a healthy relationship with a woman who deserves him. I have helped other fraud victims regain their dignity, and I have learned that age does not make us vulnerable. Experience makes us wiser. There are mornings when I wake up and can't believe everything that has happened. There are nights when I still get angry thinking about all the years Diana stole from me while pretending to love me. But mostly I feel at peace, because in the end, the truth always comes out. Justice, though sometimes late, comes for those who have the patience to wait for it and the courage to fight for it. To all the women who hear this story and have gone through something similar, I want to say this: trust your instincts, document everything, don't let legal threats intimidate you, and remember that age gives us an advantage that young people don't have: the wisdom to know when something isn't right. Sometimes the greatest legacy we can leave is not money in the bank, but the example that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, seek justice, and protect others from suffering the same fate you endured. And to the sons who are listening, if your mother says something doesn't feel right about someone, especially a partner, take her seriously. She knows you better than anyone else and loves you more than anyone else. Your maternal instinct is worth more than all the gold in the world. Because at the end of the day, real family isn't just blood. It's the people who are willing to fight for you, protect you, and be there for you through thick and thin. And that, my dears, is priceless.